So I'd had 2 huge shocks within a year. So emotionally, it was very difficult. I had sudden abdominal pain came on one evening. As a nurse in the past, I realised it wasn't a simple colic or tummy infection or something like that, that I was in trouble and I needed help. I'd recently lost my husband, so I was here on my own, and I decided to unlock the front door and go to bed because I was afraid of collapsing. When I got up to bed, I'm not sure if I dialed 111 or 999, but one or the other, and was told an ambulance would be there within half an hour. I waited, I don't know how long, I lost track of time, but having been a nurse in A&E, I kept thinking the ambulances are very busy and I mustn't keep ringing, but I knew I was in trouble and I needed help. My first thought that I was bleeding internally. So eventually I did ring the ambulance again, at least twice during the night. One operator said, "Don't ring again," and I knew that they must be very, very busy, but I needed help. Another operator said, "Get yourself a hot water bottle and a paracetamol." But I was in so much pain and feeling so frail that I couldn't get down the stairs. But unfortunately, I wasn't with it enough to explain that, and just put the phone down. The ambulance eventually turned up at 5 o'clock in the morning and took me into hospital, by which time I'd been in pain a number of hours. I got taken to the theatre, and when I came round, I'd got a stoma, which was quite difficult to control, even as a nurse. And I asked the surgeon, had I been brought into hospital quickly, would I have had the same big operation? He said no, because the gut can survive for 6 hours without a blood supply. After that, it becomes gangrenous, and that's what had happened to me.
I was asked to investigate this particular incident because I work both in EOC and I also work as a critical care paramedic. It kind of fit in both camps. There was some elements from EOC and some clinical elements as well. So what happened during this incident was that initially there was very limited information because this came through from another agency. It was then categorised to a certain grade of call. Some welfare calls were made, and actually there weren't enough made. So then what happened was this patient slipped through the net. So as they slipped through the net, there was no clinical input to this call. So that was my main concern.
I was also told that the operators, when they get a call, they have no medical knowledge. They have to read through a protocol and they're not allowed to deviate from it. That appalled me because I thought that whoever I was speaking to would have some medical knowledge and understand, but they don't.
Well, I don't expect someone who's non-clinical to have any clinical acumen to tell whether or not a patient's very sick. You know, that's not their role, and this is where you need that clinical input. So if you're a call taker who rings someone back and they don't sound very well, well then ask someone. You know, have a very low tolerance. Ask a clinician. That's their role. That's what their speciality is. So just ask them and tell them, I'm not happy, that doesn't sound right. And also, while you're putting in the notes, make sure your notes are very comprehensive and look at it. And if there hasn't been a welfare call done for 3 hours, you know that's wrong. So highlight this and flag this to those people in the room. And hopefully then, these people won't fall through the gaps.
Apparently, because I'd been in pain for so long and dehydrated and one thing and another, I had what they called a wobbly. I asked an anaesthetist what that meant. He said, you started producing toxins, so we had to stop the anaesthetic and do a stoma and bring you round. And then I had to have the stoma for 5 months to let all the swelling subside. But I'd lost my husband quite recently and I was staying with my daughter. I was very bored. I was spending a lot of time thinking about my husband, I couldn't get out because of the regime on the diet and fluid intake. And I said to my daughter one night, I would rather go to Dad. And she contacted the consultant, and he very kindly said, bring her in next day, which we went. And he said, I'm going to do you as an emergency on Monday. So he admitted me. It's had a lot of effect emotionally, and knocked my confidence and my self-esteem. But I'm glad to say I'm now well. And the ambulance service has been very good. They've been trying to sort out what happened, and hopefully are going to put things right.
Clinical input to those welfare calls is fundamental to patient care. CQC's also highlighted this with their findings, so these things all add up. The Trust is trying, because they've put this new position in place. I think we're desperately short of clinicians in the room. We're trying really hard to get more people to work in the room to stop things like this happening.